Ethan had always been different from other mechanics. While most people saw a broken machine as nothing more than twisted metal and lifeless parts, Ethan saw stories written in gears and wires. To him, every engine had a heartbeat, every bike a soul waiting to be awakened. His workshop was small, squeezed between a pawn shop and a boarded-up diner on the rough side of town. The paint on the sign above the door was chipped and fading, but word of Ethan's gift spread quietly among those who needed it. Truckers said he could fix a transmission blindfolded. Cab drivers swore he could hear an engine knock and know the exact bolt causing it. Bikers called him a miracle worker. That night, a storm rolled in, clouds snarling like wild dogs. The wind carried the faint smell of rain and gasoline. Ethan was tightening the last screw on an old pickup when a sound thundered through the alley, a Harley-Davidson limping and choking like it had taken its last breath. The rider pulled up, his long beard wet with rain, tattoos coiled across his arms like serpents. His leather vest bore the unmistakable insignia of the Hells Angels, a name that made most men stiffen with fear. The biker dismounted, his boots clanging against the concrete floor. "You the mechanic everyone talks about?" he asked in a low, gravelly voice. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag, his calm eyes meeting the man's fiery ones. "Depends who's asking. Name's Razor," the biker said, jerking a thumb toward the Harley. "She's my girl. No one's been able to fix her. She dies every time I hit 60, like her soul gives out. I've spent thousands on mechanics, but they all said she's done. Tell me, can you save her?" Ethan knelt beside the bike, running his fingers gently along the frame, listening to the faint ticks and rattles like a doctor pressing a stethoscope to a patient's chest. "She's not dead," he said after a moment, his voice carrying quiet confidence. "She's just waiting for someone who knows how to listen." Razor raised an eyebrow. "Then show me." For the next few hours, the workshop became a stage. Sparks danced in the dim light as Ethan worked with surgical precision. His hands moved swiftly, tightening here, adjusting there, his ears attuned to every subtle sound. He replaced a misaligned gasket, rewired a faulty connection, and tuned the carburetor with the care of an artist brushing color onto canvas. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but his focus never wavered. Razor watched in silence, his tough exterior softening as he realized he wasn't witnessing just a repair, he was witnessing a resurrection. Finally, near midnight, Ethan twisted the ignition. The Harley coughed once, then erupted into a deep, thunderous roar. The sound filled the room, steady and powerful, echoing like a heartbeat finally freed. Razor's eyes widened, and for the first time that night, a grin broke across his hardened face. "You're a damn genius," he said, shaking Ethan's hand with a grip full of respect. "No one's ever made her sing like that." Ethan smiled faintly, wiping his hands again. She just needed someone to believe she wasn't finished. But outside the office window, hidden behind the blinds, Ethan's boss stood watching, his expression dark, not with pride, but with jealousy. The next morning, Ethan walked into the shop with a quiet sense of pride. He could still hear the Harley's thunder in his head, the way it had come alive under his hands. For a man like him, victories were rare and fleeting, and that sound had felt like a personal triumph. He half expected Razor to spread the word, maybe bring in more customers, maybe even get his boss to finally recognize the value he brought to the dingy little garage. Instead, the moment he stepped through the back door, he was met with silence. His coworkers avoided his eyes. The air was thick, not with the familiar scent of grease and metal, but with tension. Ethan walked straight to the office, his stomach tightening when he saw the shop manager, Carl, waiting with a smug grin that didn't belong on the face of a man who had never picked up a wrench in his life. "Sit down," Carl said, leaning back in his chair. Ethan did, though unease prickled his skin. "Something wrong?" Carl steepled his fingers, eyes cold. "You're fired." The words hit harder than a wrench to the chest. Ethan blinked, struggling to process. "Fired? What are you talking about? I fixed Razor's Harley. The guy practically worshipped the ground I walked on last night. He'll be back with more customers. Isn't that what you want?" Carl's smirk widened. "No. What I want is for customers to respect the company, not a grease monkey who thinks he's a hero. You were hired to work for me, not to build a reputation that overshadows mine." Ethan clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. "So this is about your ego. You're seriously cutting me loose because I did my job too well." Carl shrugged. "Think of it as protecting the brand. People don't need to know your name. They need to know this garage. And if you keep being the miracle worker, all they'll care about is you. That's not good for business. Ethan stood, fire blazing in his chest. What's not good for business is you putting yourself ahead of the customers. That Harley could have killed Razor if someone hadn't fixed it right. And don't think I haven't noticed the corners you've been cutting, the cheap parts, the shortcuts. You're risking lives, Carl. The manager's face darkened, but his tone stayed eerily calm. Get out before I call security. Ethan's hands trembled, not with fear but with anger. He wanted to scream, to expose Carl's lies, but he knew it would only end with him being dragged out like a criminal. He grabbed his tool bag, the weight of it heavier than ever, and stormed toward the exit. Outside, the sunlight hit him like a spotlight. Waiting near the curb were Razor and two other bikers, their leather vests marked with the same fierce insignia. Razor looked Ethan up and down, then noticed the tool bag. They fired you. Ethan exhaled sharply. Yeah, apparently, I'm too good for their liking. The other bikers exchanged looks, and Razor's jaw tightened. That was a mistake. A big one. You don't just fire the man who brought a Harley back from the dead. Especially not my Harley. Ethan tried to laugh it off, but the truth was, fear not at him. He had no job, no money, and no clue what tomorrow would bring. He thought he had hit rock bottom, but deep down, something told him that the real story was only beginning. 3 restless days passed. Ethan sat at the small wooden table in his apartment, unpaid bills stacked like accusations. His hands, once so steady with tools, fidgeted constantly. He had spent his life fixing things, but this, his own future, was a problem he couldn't tighten with a wrench or grease back into motion. Every mechanic he'd called turned him down, unwilling to risk hiring someone blacklisted by Carl. Word traveled fast in their line of work, and Carl's grip on the local auto world was stronger than Ethan had realized. Late that afternoon, the low growl of an engine echoed outside his window, not the sound of an ordinary car, but something smoother, richer. When Ethan peered through the blinds, his breath caught. A sleek black limousine had pulled up to the curb, polished so sharply it reflected the clouds above. The rear door opened, and out stepped a man in a tailored navy suit and polished leather shoes. Ethan's eyes widened. It was Razor. But not the Razor he knew. Gone was the biker vest, the boots, the wild exterior. His hair was slicked back, and he carried himself with the calm authority of someone used to being obeyed. Ethan, he called, his voice steady and commanding. We need to talk. Still stunned, Ethan opened the door. Razor. What's going on? The man smiled knowingly. Out there, with my brothers, I'm Razor. But in here, he tapped his chest, I'm Victor Harrison, CEO of Harrison Motors. One of the biggest auto companies in the country. Ethan nearly stumbled backward. You're a CEO. Then why, the bike, the leathers, the Hells Angels? Victor chuckled. The Harley was my first love, long before the boardrooms and skyscrapers. I still ride with the angels sometimes, to remember my roots, to remind myself who I am beneath all this. But when my bike failed, I saw an opportunity. Mechanics, engineers, designers, they all tried, and none of them could fix her. Then you came along. You didn't just repair the machine, Ethan. You listened to her. You treated her like she mattered. That's rare. Ethan swallowed hard, his disbelief turning to a flicker of hope. But why are you here? I've got nothing left to offer. Carl saw to that. Victor's eyes hardened. Carl fired you because he was hiding the truth. He's been using cheap, unlicensed parts in his shop, gambling with people's lives to save money. I've known for months, but I needed proof, and someone who could stand against him. That's you. He reached into the limo and pulled out a folder, sliding it onto Ethan's table. Inside was a contract with Harrison Motors. The title on top read, Lead Mechanical Engineer. I want you to come work for me, Victor said firmly. Not as a nobody hidden behind some crooked manager's ego, but as the man who leads my innovation team. You've got the gift, Ethan. And I won't let it rot in some alley shop. Ethan's throat tightened. For years, he'd dreamed of something more, but fear and small paychecks had chained him to mediocrity. Now, here it was, the key to everything he had ever wanted, handed to him by the very man whose Harley he had brought back to life. His hands trembled as he signed the contract. Victor clapped him on the back, his grin wide. Welcome to the big leagues. Oh, and don't worry about Carl. By the time I'm done, everyone will know the truth about him. For the first time in years, Ethan felt free. He had been fired as a mechanic, but tonight, he was reborn as something greater, proof that brilliance could never be buried by jealousy, and that sometimes, a broken engine was only the beginning of a much bigger ride.